Transformers, a beautiful franchise of heroic Autobots waging their war with the evil Decepticons. At its best, Transformers is an amazing, character-driven story about people rising above themselves to confront evil and fight for what's right. At its worst, it's a soulless cash grab of a confused disaster where characters spout exposition, act in stupid and inconsistent ways, and no one knows what's going on. Today, we're going to examine a movie that falls in the middle of all of that. Transformers, directed by Michael Bay and released in 2007. And I will explain why this movie is not a complete dumpster fire. My name is Paul, and today we will be doing a deep dive on Transformers. This is Plot Spot. Welcome to Plot Spot, the place where we analyze stories and try to determine what makes them succeed or fail. So, what will this video series consist of? Well, I'm going to walk through the plot of the movie, discussing it in depth as I go. Then, at the end, I will discuss the characters and take a look at the structure and pacing, as well as the themes. I'm attempting to view this movie through as objective of a lens as possible, since just saying, this looks good or this looks bad, doesn't give you very much to work with. I'm going to try to get to why something is good or bad. That being said, just because I am trying to be objective does not mean all of my views are correct, or that you won't disagree with them. I welcome you to challenge what you disagree with. It also doesn't mean I will succeed in being completely objective, as I don't think anyone can truly be 100% objective. We're all colored by our biases and preferences. But that's no reason to not give it an honest try. It's also not going to be a Michael Bay hate fest. I believe this movie is actually decent. Not great, but decent. I think it gets a lot of things right in the characters and the realism that comes across from them. The story of a teenage boy who wants the car and the girl. That's a relatable story. Even if you are a certified nerd that can name every planet shown in the Star Wars movies, such as myself, you can relate to that. And then he's thrown into a world that he could have never imagined, and he's called to be a hero. I think that's a pretty great message. However, that doesn't mean I'm going to be pulling my punches with this movie. There are a lot of problems that need to be addressed, from small things to massive blunders. Trust me, Bay will be feeling my full rage throughout this series. Rage more wrathful than a Quintesson judge's face of wrath, hotter than the fires of the pit, and more irritating and painful than cosmic rust. Now that I've flexed my nerd credentials, let's get on to the film itself. Transformers was released in 2007, and was the 5th highest grossing film of the year worldwide. It soon gained a reputation for being stupid, shallow, crude, and all-around juvenile. And it is, don't get me wrong, but as I said before, I think it's a decent movie, especially when you compare it to the later films in the franchise. But we'll get to those in time. For now, let's start at the best place to start, the beginning.
Before time began, there was the Cube.
I can remember sitting in that dark theater at 12 years old as Peter Cullen's voice boomed out of those speakers, like the voice of God speaking the universe into existence. This was such an amazing way to begin the movie, showcasing Peter Cullen's extraordinary talent and giving the audience a quick rundown of the plot device for this movie, as well as the background for the war between the Autobots and Decepticons. Sure, later movies kind of ruin it, but that's on them, not on this movie. I'm also a fan of this visual. The slow zoom out of the Allspark is a nice touch. It looks like it's the surface of an alien world, complete with valleys and mountains and even highways, but it actually is just the hieroglyphics of the cube. Optimus Prime sets up the origins of the race, which are contradicted 7 years later, and explains how the Cybertronian War started, how Cybertron was ravaged by it, and that the Allspark was lost. He then says how they scattered across the galaxy looking for it, and that their search brought them to an unknown planet called
Earth.
But they were already too late. Still get chills from it. A solid opening that I think is on par with the opening crawl of Star Wars, and one that is never quite matched in any of the other Transformers films. Perhaps we could have used a flashback to the war, but I think saving that for the meeting with the Autobots works, especially if they had expanded on it. The only other problem I think is that we could have had an explanation on how the Allspark was lost. I mean, that doesn't just happen. Giant space cubes don't just fly into space. I know the comics set up that Optimus launched it to keep it out of Megatron's hands, and that's a fine explanation, but that's not in the movie. We can't appeal to third-party materials to explain plot holes. I'm all for additional books and other forms of media to flesh out a universe and add depth to a character. From Halo to Star Wars, some of my favorite stories are these kinds. But all of these are to add to the universe. The movie, or whatever the main medium is, should be able to stand on its own. I should not have to read some obscure blog site so I can know why this character is acting this certain way. The movie needs to be able to speak for itself. So that's my standard going forward. All that said, I think it's important to know why the cube disappeared all those years ago. And I think we should have gotten that in the movie, either here or later in the film. So the scene cuts to the present day, which I guess means 2007, and we are introduced to a group of soldiers stationed at SOCCENT Forward Operations Base in Qatar. Meet Lennox, Epps, Fig, and Donnelly, although he is never named that in the movie. We get some nice banter back and forth between the team, showing their bonds and that Lennox is a new father that wants to meet his daughter for the first time. This gives him a strong reason to fight, something that drives him. I think it would have served the script well to lean into that a bit more and strengthen his character. We get more scenes of the military, and then we're introduced to Mahfouz, a local Qatari boy who apparently works on the military base? What now? You're telling me that they let kids from another country no less, onto military bases without escort and make a living? What the hell kind of sense does that make? He could be used as a spy for enemy forces, and if the base was ever attacked, surely that won't happen. He has no idea how to fight, so he could easily be killed. I find it very hard to believe the US military would needlessly put a civilian in harm's way like that. Plus, he says that he lives on the other side of a mountain. A mountain! And I thought I had a long commute. They just let this 12-year-old kid march across the desert for miles to come work at a military base where he could be the potential victim of an attack? Come on, guys. That's just stupid. The reason he's narratively here is to bring them to his village, but surely one of the soldiers could have just had knowledge of it and the team decides to seek it out for aid. They didn't need to introduce a kid that makes no sense into the movie. Too bad this is one of the smallest offenses of this film. After this, a mysterious helicopter approaches the base, naturally sending the military into high alert. Colonel Sharp orders the helicopter to respond and change course, but it doesn't. It just flies ponderously closer. That's when they discover that the helicopter with that tail designation was shot down 3 months ago. Spooky ghost helicopter. What could it all mean? Well, the military has the helicopter come to the base where it is suddenly sunset, followed by rapid night? What the hell is this? And it's not the last time this happens in the movie either. I guess Michael Bay really liked the lighting for each of these shots, and timeline be damned. As Lennox talks to his wife, Sarah, his call is interrupted, as well as the radar and other electronic functions of the military base. The soldiers go out and surround the helicopter when... That's right. This is no ordinary helicopter. It's a robot in disguise, specifically the Decepticon Blackout, and thus precedes what might be the best sequence in all of the Transformers films. It's like a grittier version of the Decepticon attack on Autobot City from the '86 animated movie. But before we talk about that, I want to point out this one scene. One of the soldiers calls out, "Open fire! Stand by to engage!" But after a few seconds, the soldiers start shooting without ever receiving the order to shoot. Now, I'm on the fence with this choice. I assume what the writers are going for is that the soldiers lose their cool from seeing something so strange. Although it also could be that there was an order given and it got cut for some reason. That wouldn't surprise me with this movie. Why I'm on the fence about this scene is that I don't know if soldiers would just start shooting without receiving orders, even in this scenario. That being said, I do like it. It shows the understandable fear these men would have, facing an unknown threat like this. Perhaps if any military people watch this video, they can give their insight on whether they think this is realistic or not. Until then...
I'll allow it.
Also, what is this guy doing? Doesn't he know all hell is breaking loose outside? And he's just walking like Colonel Sharp asked him to get him a coffee? But as I was saying earlier, this attack on the military base is what I imagine a lot of Transformers fans were looking for in a live-action adaptation. Instead of the usual Decepticons attacking a location with humans and just holding the people captive until the Autobots invariably rescue them, Blackout takes no prisoners. He just kills everyone in his path. This also works because he is trying to get some important data, and he won't want any survivors to report his whereabouts. So he isn't killing only to show how evil he is. And it makes sense he wouldn't just start with obliterating the base, because he needed the info on Project Iceman first. Overall, due to the tone and the thought-out logic of the scene, well, mostly, leads me to say that I think this may be the best scene in the film franchise. Although a potential problem with Blackout's plan is his choice of disguise. The military is aware that 4500 X-ray was shot down, and I believe the implication is that Blackout did it as he scanned the helicopter. But even if it was shot down by other means, and he scanned the carcass, that doesn't change that the military knows, so he can't just slide in and take the vehicle's place. That's like trying to impersonate a dead guy. Either way.
Not a great plan.
Blackout should have tried to infiltrate the military motor pool, as Starscream and the others seem to have done. Then again, looking at his results, maybe it wasn't necessary. Another issue I have with this sequence is that they don't show Blackout enough, just the products of his destruction. It feels like a bit of a cop-out, and it was presumably done for budget reasons. Maybe if Bay toned down on the random explosions, they could have spent more on the CGI. Having launched his attack, Blackout starts to hack into the military network. As he does, this sound is heard, which becomes important later. However, I think they should have given more attention to it in this scene due to its importance. As it stands, it kind of just blends into the rest of the sound effects. I don't usually notice it when I watch this scene, even though I know they set it up here. Colonel Sharp sees what's going on and orders the hard lines cut, but I need a kid! There are some hilarious lines in this movie. Anyways, Sharp takes things into his own hands and cuts the data cables himself. Another point of ambiguity in this scene. Were they successful? We know from later on in the movie that they were, as the Decepticons are still trying to find the info, but that's not at all clear from this scene. In fact, I would venture to say that they were unsuccessful due to the editing of it. A great way to fix this scene would have been to show Blackout reacting in frustration as the connection was terminated, maybe even with some dialogue. It would have shown the audience that the humans were successful in cutting the hard lines before he got any data, and would have given more character to Blackout, something sorely lacking in this movie. Meanwhile, Lennox is leading his team through the base, trying to get off it, I guess? Don't know exactly, but they take cover and Epps is caught out in the open by Blackout. He decides to take a photo of the giant Decepticon. Then Blackout points a cannon at him. That's sure what it comes across as, but he sure as heck doesn't shoot Epps with it. Blackout had plenty of time to before Fig hits him with a saber round, thus saving Epps. Then Blackout deploys Scorponok to hunt down the humans as they escape, particularly after the Imager, I would suppose, to keep the attack under wraps. This has some problems, though. The first is that Blackout did not seem that incapacitated that he would not have been able to kill Lennox's team, especially looking at what he does seconds later in the film in destroying the base. The second is, how does Scorponok not kill the humans immediately? Instead of hunting them for miles across the desert, this should have played out much more like when Barricade deploys Frenzy in his battle with Bumblebee later in the movie. Scorponok was mere yards from Lennox's team. He should have been able to kill them easily. I guess Blackout just sucks at his job, as do Roberto Orci and Alex Kurtzman. They should have come up with another way for Lennox and his team to escape.
It's on the one hand really exciting to take that challenge, and on the other hand you go like, I don't want to screw this up.
Anyways, with Blackout distracted or whatever the hell he's doing, Lennox's team makes their escape, and Blackout, having no further use for the military base, wipes it out. This makes logical sense that he would not immediately destroy the base as he wanted to collect the files on Project Iceman, but once that was no longer an option, he annihilates it. After all, he doesn't want any survivors alerting the rest of humanity to his presence. Too bad Blackout is too stupid to just kill Lennox's team. Overall, I stand by this being one of the best scenes in the franchise. Some other scenes may hold together better logically, but this one is the best balance of logic and spirit that truly captures what a real Decepticon attack would look like on a military target. But I digress, and so does the movie. We go to a completely different scene. Just an average high school in California, where all good, wholesome American shows are set. And we are introduced to Sam Witwicky, our protagonist. Don't you worry, we're going to get to learn about him soon enough. But first, we have to address the elephant in the room. How old is this kid? As Sam's teacher, Mr. Hosny, says,
It's the 11th grade.
Which means these kids are between 16 and 17. So why does this kid look 12? I don't know if he actually is or not, but why put him front and center in the shot? This shot literally ruins the entire movie. In fact, I think we can end the video right here. Analysis over. Okay, I'm just kidding, but I still find it bizarre. Anyways, Sam gives his genealogy report, talking about his great-great-grandfather, Captain Archibald Witwicky, who was one of the first men to explore the Arctic Circle. We'll go into detail on that a bit later, but for now, all that needs to be said is that Captain Witwicky led 41 sailors into the Arctic shelf and got stuck. Although I do have to point out this strange line.
The ice is freezing faster than it's melting!
I'm sorry, what?
The ice is freezing faster than it's melting!
That just doesn't make any sense. Why would the ice be freezing and melting at the same time to make someone comment on that? Why would someone expect the ice to melt in the Arctic? No one knows what the hell's going on.
Why are we doing that? I don't know. It's funny.
They're just spouting words so that phonemes hit our eardrums, giving our brains the sensation that we heard something intelligible. There's a lot of that in this movie, come to think of it. It's also a bit odd that they show this flashback. It doesn't really add anything to this scene. It feels like we're about to see more, but it ends suddenly. They could have probably just rolled this into the other flashback we get later when Optimus talks to Sam.
And here we have some of the basic instruments and tools used by 19th century seamen. Like the sextant here.
Alright, I get the seaman joke. Haha, very funny. But sextant? Really? Just because the word sex is in there? Do people really find that funny? Even the target demographic of teenage boys? How lame. So anyways, Sam explains how all of Archibald's possessions are for sale on eBay and going toward his car fund, much to the consternation of Mr. Hosny. This is strange because he says later that he already got the $2,000 toward his car, so I guess this is just gravy on top? Why not say that? Why link it to the car in a throwaway line? It seems unnecessary as if they meant to use only one of these lines but kept both in. Meanwhile, we are briefly introduced to Michaela Baines, who we'll talk about later, and Trent DeMarco, who shows himself to be an asshole. You know, I guess the filmmakers capture typical American high school pretty well. What with the bullying, the cringe school reports where the kids are peddling their wares, the juvenile jokes, and teenage angst. Sam then brings up the main point of this scene, Archibald's glasses, which seem to have something engraved on them. Kind of think someone would have noticed that, however I'm not sure that the Witwickies are known for their observational skills. He then says that Archibald unfortunately went blind and insane in a mental institution, drawing strange symbols and talking about a man he thought he discovered in the ice. Surely nothing to see here, just a crazy man being crazy. After class is dismissed, Sam has a disagreement with Mr. Hosny about the quality of his presentation. Personally, I think Sam's teacher was being generous with a B-. Sam then cynically leverages the power of Jesus to convince Mr. Hosny to up his grade to an A, as he needs one more for his father to get him a car. So Sam's going to hell. Probably already was, though.
If you find busty beauties under my bed...
The boy's pheromone levels suggest he wants to mate with the female.
Again, I think this scene accomplishes its goal. It sets up Sam's self-centered nature, plus hints at Megatron and the plot device that will make him cross paths with the Autobots. He is a relatable teenage boy. He wants the cool car, the hot girl, and maybe even wants to go on the awesome adventure to save the world. I think that character gets a little screwed up in the sequels, but that's for future videos. So anyways, that's the end of part 1. Next time, we will be taking a look at one of the finest used car lots in Los Angeles, which isn't saying much. This is the part of the video where I would say to do the normal YouTube stuff like liking and subscribing, but it's 2024. I don't really have to do that, do I? You know what to do if you want to. Good. I will ask, though, that if you disagree with any of my takes, please leave a comment and get a discussion going. I love Transformers, so I always enjoy talking about it, especially if we can get into deeper topics than just who is your favorite Autobot or Decepticon. I just ask that you leave something constructive, not because I can't handle negative criticism, but because if you just tell me you suck, it's like, okay, what do I do with that? But if that's what you really want to do, go for it. I ain't stopping you. Now, let's go out and find more stories to experience. Then I'll meet you back here where we'll examine another one. Until next time, I've been Paul, and this has been Plot Spot.